We will talk about three main guidelines for creating graphs in PowerPoint. The first guideline is to choose a chart type that clearly and effectively communicates your message. You can make many different types of charts in PowerPoint, but there will usually be one chart type that is best for your purposes. The second guideline is to declutter graphs and charts. We will go through some simple methods of doing this to ensure that your graphs are visually appealing. Finally, I always recommend redrawing graphs to unify presentations. I will discuss ways to do this in the final portion of our section on graphs. Let's begin by looking at the basics of inserting a graph in PowerPoint.
Now we will discuss how graphs are inserted into PowerPoint presentations. In order to insert a graph into a PowerPoint presentation, you'll go to the Insert tab in your ribbon and then go to Chart. Once you go to Chart, you'll see that there are a ton of options for different graphs, but mainly when you're using a PowerPoint presentation, I would recommend sticking to column, line, pie, XY scatter, and maybe sometimes one of the statistical charts like box and whisker or histogram, but that's a bit less common. I'm going to start by inserting a bar chart because I think that this is a really common graph type and you will probably be familiar with looking at it. When you insert a chart into PowerPoint, PowerPoint does two things. It first inserts a chart onto the slide, and then it also pulls up an Excel sheet that you'll use to actually change the data that goes into the chart. So you can see if I were to change this to a 10 right here, it will also change in the chart. It also changes the axis labels so that the 10 is visible. So when this was a 5, for example, you can see that it automatically shrinks the y-axis to fully fill the page, which is a nice feature of PowerPoint. I'm going to exit out of the Excel sheet right now because I think that using these example data will work just fine for going through how this is actually used. Once you go into the slide and click on the chart itself, you'll see that two additional tabs appear in your ribbon, Chart Design and Format. Let's take a look at what these different tabs have to offer. In Chart Design, you'll see that you have the option of adding a chart element. Here is where you'll go to add a variety of elements, including primary, vertical, and horizontal axis labels, axis titles, chart title, data labels, and various other options, even error bars. When adding in features, this is the easiest way to do it. However, if you want to delete a feature, I think the easiest way to do that is to just simply click on the feature in the chart and click Delete. It's really simple, so you can delete the legend, you can even delete the axis labels like this, and basically only have a graph with bars. Obviously for a scientific presentation that's not ideal. And then to add them back in, you'll just go to Add Chart Element, and you'll add them back in one by one. Another way to change the chart layout is to go to Quick Layout. This will give you all of the different features in different recommended formats. So for example, in this layout 1, you have the legend to the right, the category axis labels on the bottom, and this on the top. You can also change it so that you have the legend on the top, no y-axis, and instead the data labels are shown at the top, and so on. So you can see that there are a lot of different options. I would not recommend this version with the table at the bottom. I think it just looks really clunky. But other than that, I mean, most of these are going to be pretty good options. You can see you can even make the bars overlapping. I'll just go back to layout 1 because I think that that's the most basic option that we have. Then you also have the option to change colors. This is using the PowerPoint templates. So usually it's the generic PowerPoint options for colors, but there's a lot of different options. And then you can also kind of change the look and the feel of your chart using this design feature here. I'll let you take a look at these on your own, but there are a lot of different options. Once you get over to the right side of the chart design ribbon, you'll see that this is where you can actually change the data that's in your chart. You can go to Edit Data in Excel to go through and change the options here, and you can also go to Select Data, which will allow you to actually select data from other Excel sheets. This is a bit complex, I think, for this lesson in particular, but it's something to be aware of in general. Finally, over to the right, you have this option to change chart type. So for example, maybe I decide instead of doing a column chart, I want to do a line chart, and so I can do this and it will keep the same data but change it to a line display. I'll go back to the column chart for now. That's pretty much it for the Chart Design tab. Let's go over and look at the Format tab. The Format tab works a lot like the Format tab for a shape or an object, so it's very similar. In general, this is what you would use to perhaps change bar colors. You can change the color of the fill. You can also add an outline or get rid of an outline. You can change all of the bars in a certain group by clicking on them once and changing it, or you can change a single bar in a group by double clicking. And then if I change this, you'll see that this is the only bar that's changed. In general, I would recommend, especially if you have multiple bars in your chart, keeping all of these the same color, because that will make your legend actually make sense. If you go to the Format pane at the far right, you can also edit the way that the bars appear on the chart. So you can change the overlap so that they are farther apart or closer together, even overlapping. I usually set this at 0. And then you can also change the gap width so that the groups actually appear closer together. I'll let you look at kind of the rest of these features on your own, but you'll see that there are a lot of ways to customize the way that a chart looks, which means there's usually no excuse for just using the PowerPoint default. The default can be pretty boring, and I wouldn't recommend it for most uses.